You already know Babylon, not from a history book, from somewhere deeper. When someone calls a place a den of decadence and sin, they're reaching for Babylon. When you hear the phrase, the writing on the wall, or the words, by the rivers of Babylon, that's this city. And when you list the 7 wonders of the ancient world, one of them is a garden that supposedly hung in the air, here. For 2,500 years, Babylon has been humanity's single greatest symbol of 2 opposite things at once, dazzling wonder and terrible sin. And in its prime, it earned the wonder. It was the biggest, most breathtaking city on the planet, with walls of glowing blue brick guarded by dragons. But its most famous marvel, those hanging gardens, hides a genuine scandal, because we have never actually found them. And a leading scholar now argues they were never in Babylon at all. This is the story of the city that became more powerful as a legend than it ever was as a place.
Hammurabi first made Babylon matter, back around 1800 BC. But the Babylon of legend, the one in your head, comes much later, more than 1,000 years on, under one king, Nebuchadnezzar II. He ruled for more than 4 decades, from about 605 to 562 BC, and he spent them building. Will Durant saw Babylon as the great flowering of Mesopotamian civilization, its art and wealth at full bloom. Under Nebuchadnezzar, it became the largest city in the world, probably the first city anywhere to hold more than 200,000 people. Its walls wrapped around some 2,200 acres of temples, palaces, and crowded streets, a footprint no city on earth had ever matched. And he set out, deliberately, to make it the most spectacular place a human being had ever seen.
Start at the front door, because it's still one of the most beautiful objects ever made. To enter Babylon, you passed through the Ishtar Gate, a colossal double gate finished in glazed brick of a deep, luminous blue, a color that in the ancient world screamed wealth and holiness. And marching across that blue, row after row, were animals in gold and white relief, bulls, lions, and dragons, sacred beasts of the city's gods. He finished the gate around 569 BC, near the height of his reign. You walked in along a grand processional way, blue walls towering over you, lions at your shoulder, into the richest city on earth. At its heart rose a tower, the ziggurat Etemenanki, 7 levels climbing toward the sky, which Nebuchadnezzar rebuilt on a titanic scale. And if a 7-tiered tower at Babylon reaching for heaven rings a bell, it should. This is almost certainly the structure behind the story of the Tower of Babel.
But Babylon didn't only build, it conquered. And this is where the wonder turns dark. Around 587 BC, Nebuchadnezzar besieged Jerusalem, destroyed it, and carried much of the population back to Babylon in chains, the event we call the Babylonian captivity. And those exiles never forgave the city. Sitting by its rivers, they wrote about Babylon with such grief and fury that they turned its very name into a permanent symbol of arrogance and evil, a reputation that has outlived the city itself by 2,500 years. So remember that, when you call something a modern Babylon, you are, without knowing it, quoting a conquered people's revenge. And here is the detail that ties the whole story together. While those exiles sat by the rivers of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar's workmen were raising Etemenanki over their heads, 7 tiers of brick climbing into the sky, the tallest thing most of them had ever seen. Scholars think the story of the Tower of Babel, a proud city building a tower to heaven and being scattered for its arrogance, was likely shaped right there, during the exile, in the shadow of the real tower. Which means one of the most famous stories on Earth may be a prisoner's eye view of a construction site.
But we still haven't dealt with the gardens, the wonder that isn't there. The hanging gardens of Babylon, lush terraces of trees and flowers spilling down the tiers of a great structure, watered somehow high in the desert air, so magnificent the Greeks ranked them among the 7 wonders of the world. Ancient writers pictured terraces stacked like a green mountain, tons of earth held aloft on stone, full-grown trees rooted in mid-air above the rooftops. There is just one problem. We have excavated Babylon extensively and found no trace of them. Worse, not a single Babylonian document, not one of Nebuchadnezzar's many boastful inscriptions listing everything he built, ever mentions a hanging garden. For the proudest builder king in history to leave his single most famous creation entirely off the list is very strange.
So there are 3 possibilities, and they're all fascinating. 1. The gardens were real, and their remains are simply lost or still buried. 2. They never existed, a romantic story the Greeks embroidered until it became a wonder. Or 3, and this is the theory turning heads, the gardens were absolutely real, but they were never in Babylon. The Oxford scholar Stephanie Dalley makes the case that the famous gardens actually stood in Nineveh, the capital of Babylon's great rival, Assyria, built a century earlier by the Assyrian king Sennacherib. And unlike Nebuchadnezzar, Sennacherib bragged about his garden in detail, an astonishing palace garden he called a wonder for all peoples, watered by a vast 80-kilometer network of canals and aqueducts, lifted to the heights by screws. Real engineering, real inscriptions, real evidence, just in the wrong city. And to be fair, the first 2 theories still have their defenders. Babylon is enormous, and parts of it are unexcavated or lost to the shifting Euphrates. The gardens could yet be under the mud. Or the Greeks, who loved a marvelous story and wrote centuries after the fact, may simply have grown a legend out of travelers' tales. And here's how the mix-up may have happened. After Assyria conquered Babylon, its people started calling Nineveh the New Babylon. Over centuries, the wonder drifted to the more famous name. If Dalley is right, then the single most celebrated feature of Babylon was actually built by the enemy Babylon would one day destroy.
And that is the real lesson of Babylon, the thing that makes it more than a pile of blue bricks. Babylon proves that a city can become an idea, and that the idea can grow so large it swallows the truth. The real Babylon was a genuine marvel, the biggest, richest, most advanced city of its day. But the Babylon you carry in your mind was painted mostly by others, its wickedness written by the people it enslaved, its greatest wonder possibly borrowed from the rival it crushed. You have never seen Babylon, you've only ever seen the legend, and the legend has outlived every brick. So which is the real Babylon, the city or the idea? The honest answer is both. It really was the superpower of its age, and it really does live more vividly in scripture, art and language than in its own ruins. History, it turns out, is written by victims as well as victors, and Babylon is the proof in blue brick. There is something almost fitting in that, a city obsessed with reaching heaven, with being the greatest, the tallest, the most dazzling. And in the end, what survived was not its walls or its tower, or even its gardens, but its name, the ultimate symbol of human glory reaching too far, which is exactly what its most famous story, the Tower of Babel, was always about. But here's the thread we have to pull next. That rival empire, the one that may have built the real gardens, the one whose capital was called the New Babylon, was for a while the most powerful and the most terrifying force the world had ever seen. Babylon's glory was built on its grave.
Next time on Civilization OS, before Babylon rose, the Near East trembled before a different empire, one that didn't rule by wonder, but by terror. The Assyrians turned war into an industry and cruelty into official policy. They flayed rebels, deported entire nations, and boasted about it in stone. And yet they also built libraries, canals, and, quite possibly, the gardens the world remembers as Babylon's. Next, Assyria, the Empire of Iron.